Hey, folks, it is October the 30th, and we're going over the first half of chapter 19. That's XIX. And the terms we have on the board from this portion is Philip II's upbringing, his military, like his reforms and stuff like that when he becomes king, the social war, which is a little confusing because there's going to be another social war later with the Romans, and it has the same name. So, kind of like in history, there's like more than one Treaty of Paris. So, all right, and Demosthenes. So I'm giving the people in class a few minutes to go over this, and then we're going to get our notes and all that good stuff.
I bribe the people to turn in their country, or we could just kill them.
But then your people die too.
So, as long as it's not me, it's okay.
And then you destroy a city, it doesn't really work. And if it doesn't work, it can't help you in the future. It's kind of like you could get free shoes if you like loot a Walmart, but then the Walmart's gone, and you can't get
shoes.
Yeah, for a little while.
Long term versus short term.
Yeah, it's kind of like drugs, I mean, it might make you feel okay for like an evening, but then like.
But then you wake up and you're addicted.
It depends
And
on
you
what's
lose all your
wrong.
money.
Oh, there's gonna be lifelong problems, though. But the thing is, it can get you in trouble legally.
You cannot get addicted to weed. That is.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot.
But-
It is a
Hey,
proven
hey,
fact.
hey.
That's not even like it. No, that's a proven fact.
You can get
Trent,
addicted to literally
Trent.
No.
It's not a nicotine like thing.
Hey, I'm trying to talk to him. So here's the thing. Hey, Trent. So you can actually get addicted to almost anything.
But no.
It might not. But I'm not saying it can chemically do it, but people can get addicted to even screens. So yeah, you can definitely get addicted to that.
Or you can
But
get addicted to like soda.
my point is that you can still get in trouble with the law,
Well, yeah.
and that could be a bad thing.
I think they'll
But you can get addicted to like soda.
Oh.
Like it doesn't have to have
It's
a drug in it to make you addicted.
That's true. But hey, folks, guess what? The ancient
But weed has
Athenians,
effects that you probably
the
like.
ancient Athenians and Macedonians didn't have it, so it's not in our topic for today. So we can probably talk about that later if you want to. But now it's supposed to be something else. So, but yeah, y'all are not having civil discourse. Y'all are screaming at each other. That is not cool.
What's the difference?
Well, okay. So what you're supposed to do is you have a nice, polite conversation. You understand each other's points. You can counter.
Have you been paying attention for the last 4 years?
I don't like you anymore. Your opinion is.
Then I have a follow-up question for you.
If you don't like somebody just because their opinion, then it
No,
might be something with you.
But I have a question for you. Have you been paying attention for the last 4 years?
I have, but the thing is there's still a way well, if you're critical of it, then why would you mimic it?
I mean, I don't know.
So, hey, folks, let's go ahead and begin. So, once again, our terms are Philip II's upbringing, his military, and somewhat like how he has to rule stuff, social war, and Demosthenes. First, I'm going to start with the images for the kids in class. And since you can't see it, you can always Google it at home. All right, so here we have a map of Macedonia, or Macedon. So you see it's rather large here. They're bordered with a place called Thrace. Thrace, for the most part, away from the coast, is very wild. They had a lot of invasions from Germanic invaders and Celtic people along the western border here. So Macedonia had for a long time had a warrior culture built up through border defense. It's a very rough mountainous area like much of Greece. However, there's a lot of flatlands for horses, something Macedonia is going to have a lot more of than, say, Greece over here. And also they have a lot of forest. And so Macedonian nobles spent a lot of their time, unlike other Greeks, hunting, living out in the wild, fighting border invasions and things like that. So even though they might not be traditionally as organized as the Greeks, they are still very, very used to hunting and fighting, which makes them into very, very good warriors. They have a king, and their king is through primogeniture, but also at the same time, they have like a council of elders. So they have some things that's kind of like, you might say in many ways, like a modern monarchy.
Like Britain and Parliament.
Yeah, like
king,
Britain
or
and Parliament,
how it used to
exactly.
be like the king and queen. It's just not like a political figure. But
But,
it used to be like the king and Parliament.
Yeah, it used to be, especially during like the Elizabethan era and stuff like that, or all the way through the empire. So like back to here, they have a warrior-like culture. We're going to see that Philip II is going to do a lot of reforms. But Philip II has to be careful because one thing about Macedonia is that they have a lot of what's called political intrigue. So often, whenever a king comes to power, it's usually because his family has assassinated the right people or vice versa. So there was always a lot of political murders and stuff like that. Macedonians were also polygamous, so a king could have more than one wives, and that would make successions very hard. So when a king died, sometimes his own sons would kill one another to see who comes out king. Yes, John?
Was Greek just been sitting down there doing nothing this whole time?
Well, your reading hints at this. While Macedonia had got involved with Thessaly, Thebes beat up Thessaly and Macedonia at the same time. And so then they took some of the current king, I forgot his name, sons, and one of them was Philip II, as hostage. And so at first they were like, hey, Macedonia's a bunch of hicks. They don't speak Greek right. They have no art, no real buildings or anything like that. We don't care. They're out there just hunting hogs and, chasing ponies. So
Unicorns.
yeah, unicorns. But we'll get to that later. Because
What?
the myth about Alexander the Great later will be that his war horse Bucephalus was the world's only unicorn. We know it's not true, but that's where unicorn myth came from. Was
I
from
think a
Bucephalus.
unicorn.
It's because
Or-
someone shot it with an arrow directly in his head.
No, it was a very long-lived old war horse. Yes.
I read about a Chinese thing where an exploder went down to India
Mhm.
and brought back a giraffe, and they paraded around as a unicorn.
Oh,
Chinese word.
yeah, ugly unicorn. Yeah, but back to your question, yeah, Greece was ignoring them, and when Macedonia starts taking over places, they're too busy fighting each other once again, and they can't address this new threat. They're worried about Persia, and they're worried about one another still, the old enemies. So, yeah, so Macedonia is going to be a big deal here coming up. Philip II is going to take some of those. Remember, Thebes was very good at coming up with new ideas to fight, which helped them destroy Sparta. Well, Philip II is going to take the same idea of the Theban phalanx, and he's going to give them much longer spears, so long that they're actually not able to have traditional Greek hoplite shields and armor. They can't control these long lances the same.
So
They
they
do
just
have-
have with spears like this.
They did have little bucklers, and the phalanx was their standard infantry. They had other forces too. We're going to see that Alexander is going to also have hoplites and cavalry and archers, but the meat and potatoes is going to be the phalanx. The phalanx is going to be so good that they're actually going to defeat the Roman legions, but they're going to do so at such a cost that Rome's going to be able to become a powerhouse anyways, and Macedonia will fall to the wayside. So the spears were called the sarissas. They're 6 meters long, and you see it's going all the way out here, and it's stacked several rows. And if a man falls, you have another man to take his place, draw his spear down. They're very well trained. But you see they have all these poles pointing forward, and that makes it very hard for them to turn in unison. And if the ground's very uneven, they kind of don't hold their spears right, and they can kind of fall apart. But they're very, very good. If they get to pick the battleground, they choose a flat plain, and they always win. They're going to be able to defeat different kinds of armies throughout the known world. They're going to defeat hoplites, multiple kinds of Persian armies, and Indians, and also Arabic armies. And just with this single new innovation they have.
Can someone just go around the side?
You think that, but that's why they would have other phalanx on the flanks, or they would have different troops like cavalry or hoplites protect the side, like heavy infantry. So,
Catapult.
well, I mean, for siegecraft, we're going to see that not like Philip's going to be good at taking cities, but his son Alexander is going to be very good because he's going to take Greek engineering which Greeks had the best geometry, which was very good at developing siege weapons and ideas like that. And they're going to take some of the most impenetrable cities in the world. Here's a statue of Demosthenes. Just kind of, they're standing around. Like he has a big bad underbite.
Pretty good back then.
Hey, don't worry. He's actually going to die later when the Macedonians are going to try to arrest him, and he's going to ingest poison rather than being captured.
He said if I had a heart attack.
That's a ghost extra thing.
Well, that's well, I mean, it's something similar is going to happen later to Cicero when he's going to be captured by Mark Antony during the Roman days, and Cicero is going to be a lot like Demosthenes, but the Roman version. Here he is, like shouting out some of his orations over the ocean, over the waves, practicing his voices. So
Looks
yeah,
like it's on Dancing with the Stars.
well, I guess you could say so. He was definitely like the inventor of self-help, right? So he had
Mr.
many,
Wagner.
many speech impediments, physical like problems and stuff
He,
like that.
He means he's
But he trained his way out of it. Yeah.
He looks like an airbender.
He is an airbender.
a water,
Okay.
earth, fire.
He looks like, yes, he does look like he's airbending too.
Is that-
Or it might be a water.
Is that still a
Maybe
show?
because he's by the ocean.
Yeah, it's a 50-50 snap.
Yeah, 'cause
He's the Avatar.
let's see.
Avatar.
The last airbender.
Well, I don't think it worked for him. So
What?
He lived 62 years, so it was pretty good back then.
yeah, it's pretty
I
good
mean,
back
back then,
then.
if you just like drank something that wasn't.
Well, they say the Greek diet was pretty healthy. So I mean,
I'm sorry.
You
that
ate
was your joke,
peacock.
it was not funny.
Yum yum.
well, the Romans. Yeah, the Romans.
I want you peacock. That sounds good.
It's
But peacocks are technically like endangered, I believe, so you can't.
Why did
Certain
that?
types.
For some reason.
Why did
Maybe I'm speaking
Well,
stupid.
well,
I think it might be a different.
I mean, I like duck and
Why
like
did the
chickens.
Nazis kill him so like?
And
What
it's
was
like
the
the
reason
only
behind
way you can
He was going to be captured and tortured to death anyway.
Oh, I don't think
Because
it's someone in
We're
America.
going to see later. He's going to say a lot of things
Okay.
in speeches called
Yeah,
the
I'm pretty sure
Olympics
it's just an
against
American.
Philip. And when the Macedonians try to capture
I
him
thought you
for
couldn't
revenge
have
for those speeches,
No, you know.
he knows bad things in store for him.
Wow.
So,
You have to.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
it's sad. Hey,
The
Alright.
lesser of two evils situation.
well, I guess to like, yeah, to the ancient Greek mind, probably so. Modern day, no, we're like, no, that's not so good. Hey, so let's go ahead and get our terms.
Wow. Oh,
This both roads would have led to his death,
Yeah,
but one
But-
of them would just.
to give up, to like straight give up hope like that, that's nothing we frown upon these days. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So Philip or the first one, Philip II's upbringing. So
They would have offered like money for him, so if anyone found him, would have just killed him. He was pretty famous.
he was
And
famous.
most of his stuff was like talking and stuff, so he couldn't fight that much.
Yeah, and well, he was a patriot. He didn't want to leave his home. He was one of the lead of
That way he got to choose how he left his life.
That's true. Hey, Brian, what was Philip II's upbringing like? Where was he raised for a few years?
Three.
Your name be Brian.
I'm just saying it was three.
Come on, Brian.
I don't know where he was
Long
raised.
John.
I just know his father was the king.
Yeah.
And then he was like learning to be better.
From
His father. I don't know. No,
his dad?
no, it wasn't his dad.
Can I just answer it? Me too. Yeah, that's like him too.
He was taken as a hostage by who?
The king of.
Did you not read this?
No, I didn't.
Is that a bad seat for you?
No, he.
No, I mean, like, honestly, for you, like, for your education, are you sitting in a bad place? Are you distracted?
He was saying Phoebe's.
Thebes, yeah.
Phoebe's.
Hey, remember, I know you've been
Thebes.
doing distance learning. But remember, we always read the book. And so, like, whenever you hear the lecture, just know, I need to read the next chapter, you know? Or, like, what I ask the online kids to do usually is if they're not sure what chapter to read, just read the chapter after they see me talk about it with you guys. So, all right, so yeah. So when he was a teenager, he was a hostage. Remember, that wasn't as bad of a thing back then. It wasn't like
Didn't they
bank
treat them right
robbers.
still?
Yeah, they treat them right.
Yeah,
just
they
traded
raised
their
them
sons.
in Thebes. Bless you. And what did he learn in Thebes?
Their
I
ways.
speak Greek.
Language.
Language.
And then
Learn.
it said that he learned how to speak it and then write it and then he got
Yeah.
way
They
better at
just
it.
gave him a really good education.
Greek, educated. What about something useful for a king?
Oh yeah.
Strategy.
War, yeah.
Oh yeah, don't forget the war.
And one last one, the opposite of war.
Peace, treaty.
Like
Treaties.
diplomacy.
Diplomacy, yeah. So, and that's going to be something very useful for him as well, we're going to see.
Wait, who else said peace a second ago?
I don't know, let's look.
Oh yeah, it's up.
What if the humans?
Oh yeah, it's upbringing.
You
Is
said
that
the
it?
opposite
Is
of
that
war,
it?
which would be peace.
Oh really?
We're going to stop there because he was raised as a typical, we're going to see like Alexander, when we talk about his life, a typical Greek prince spent a lot of times, Macedonian prince spent a lot of their times hunting. Now, hunting for them meant they were hunting wild boars with spears, right? So these guys didn't have like firearms. They didn't use bows and arrows because
Or
boars,
traps.
traps. They probably didn't have bows that were strong enough for boars, right? Because they got thick skin, really tough. Yeah, when they get hurt, they're just, yeah, they are, and they're fast. They are real fast. So usually what they try to do is they corner them with dogs, and then they take spears and they kind of poke them. And sometimes they lose a dog or two when they're doing it.
You said they poke them?
Poke them.
To death.
So they grow up doing that, fighting, breaking in wild horses, stuff like that, kind of like rodeo stuff.
Watching
So-
people on top of a mountain.
It's a pretty tough life. He grew up like that, but then as a young man, he more than likely participated in his father's wars. Because even like at the age of like 13, 14, they were already out there fighting with the grown-ups. But here we see he's going to be exchanged to Thebes. You're going to have some of that rough stuff polished off. And so we said he learned a lot of war from Thebes. So what do they mention as far as his military reforms and what he did with that military?
Didn't he use what he learned at Thebes to make his military, but make it better?
Yes. Learn improvements from Thebes. And what did we say his new army was called? He's going to develop, it was a PH word,
Points.
phalanx, yeah.
Points.
We're going to talk about that all the way through Alexander's time and even into the beginning of the Roman era. So he's going to develop the phalanx. So now, and when he develops the phalanx, he's going to hire, this is weird. People didn't really do this back then. The Spartans kind of did it, but it was just something you were supposed to do free of charge because you're a citizen. But he's going to make a professional army. These are troops who are troops full time.
Learn what?
Usually in the ancient days, an army is called whenever there's a war. We saw the Greeks were innovative because sometimes they would train on the weekends. He's going to have guys who are paid with his kingly money to be there every day of the week to train, to fight, and to be the best army in the world. Nobody really did this except the Spartans. However, he's going to do it on a bigger scale and with new kind of army. He's not going to use old, stagnant, outdated hoplite tactics, as useful as they used to be. And so he's going to start using this army, as we saw, and Athens gets a little perturbed by this. They're like, what are you doing? And so what does he do when he gains a city? He gives it to,
What's that? The not Athens. He gives it to
Yeah.
not Athens.
he says, hey, Athens, if you let me take this city, I'll give it to you. Athens like, whoa, okay, yeah, we love that. But instead he gives it to Athens' enemies. And so Athens, who swore not to fight him, now is like in a predicament because now their enemies are stronger.
I thought it was Athens.
The what?
Yeah, it was Athens' friend.
Yeah, that's right. But now they're going to be their enemies because they got the city that they wanted. So yeah, that's diplomacy. And diplomacy, a lot of it has to do with deception, for right or wrong.
Hasn't changed much in that one.
You hear?
No,
So
absolutely.
technically, he turned all his Athens friends
The
against.
American government.
Just and remember, the Persians would do something similar. They would pay people. They would pay Greeks to fight one another.
That black hole.
The social war. Does anybody know exactly what was that generally about? We don't really need to know specifics about it. You might in your quiz, like in 3 weeks when we have the next one.
Talking about the social war?
Yeah. So who fought here?
Athens and
Your allies?
Macedonia.
Well, no. Macedonia was out of the picture.
Yeah.
The social war was a distraction. Yeah. So Athens
And your
fought, and the reason is they fought other Greeks
yeah, we fought there.
because
They didn't treat them right.
yeah, in the past, because they were still bitter.
Does that say fought others Greeks?
Other Greeks, yeah. Oops. There we go. Other Greeks because of how cruel they used to be. The Greeks didn't trust Athens anymore.
So just like the fall of Athens.
It's a continuation.
Part 2.
They used to be. So here, I'll explain after I write it. So remember, in the time of Delian League, Athens was cruel to their people. Then the Peloponnesian War, they were further cruel to other Greeks. They're going to try to make another group, a league, to stop Philip. When they try to do that, the Greeks freak out and they fight Athens. And so it's social war because it's essentially the society is fighting one another. And so this is going to be, all of Greece is going to be distracted, fighting each other while Philip is getting stronger and stronger. And he's going to wind up taking a part of Thessaly that's full of gold mines. And he's just going to take all that gold for himself and make his army even bigger and better with all that money. And then he's going to use that money to basically buy cities instead of attacking them.
Pay to win.
And we're going to see, yeah, he's paying to win. They're going to see that he's going to move down south. And when we come back next week, we're going to see he's going to start taking Greece. Now, this guy's going to be one of the people who tries to warn the Greeks about Philip. He's going to say, hey, Philip's going to take your freedoms. So what's Demosthenes start? What was he wanting to be? But he
An orator.
Yeah. See,
He's the lisp man.
so he wanted to be an orator.
Man.
Everybody wanted to be in order?
Yeah. Beep, beep. But he had some problems.
Stutter.
Yeah, he
Stutter couldn't
Oh,
pronounce
yeah.
the R's.
Physical deformities. I can't speak.
But he had also speech impediment.
yeah, speech impediment.
He made weird faces and his shoulder kept touching weird.
Yeah, his
Had
posture,
weird
his
ticks. Just put
expression.
that. He had weird ticks.
Yeah, you can put that.
He was bullied.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, so people didn't like strange affect. So yeah, he does like all the things like that, because we know whenever you're communicating with somebody, your body language says a lot. Your facial expressions, what you do with your hands, your eyes, because they say like your eyes can show emotion better than like say your mouth. It's more accurate than say like a frown or a smile. This is harder for people to fake the eyes, right? And so, but also his inflections and stuff. People don't respect him. They think he doesn't sound too smart. Unfortunately, whenever people have speech impediments, people tend to think less of him, right? So he has these problems. Yeah, like somebody mentioned bullying. So he tries to make public speeches. Remember, Athenians, you were supposed to be your own speaker in the democracy and your own attorney and your own lawmaker. You went up in front of the people and gave speeches. He couldn't do it. They laughed him off the stage.
And so went on. I thought there was, I think it was a British king who had speech.
Yeah, that was the king of England during World War II. And
I
yeah,
had to give this big speech.
You said they laughed him off the stage?
Yeah.
I would have felt bad afterwards.
well, I mean, remember the Greeks? They can be very cruel. Like the Athenians can be very cruel in their public assemblies. So, yeah, I don't remember his name. The current Queen Elizabeth. That was her husband. Yeah, and she's 90-something right now.
She's old.
Prince Philip.
Oh.
Yeah.
The other Prince Philip.
The other prince. I don't keep up with the English monarchy.
I just know that because like everyone's saying that like she's like immortal or something, and it's like
Yeah, she's like
isn't he
97.
older than her? Like,
Yeah.
My wife's great grandmother's her age, and she still drives and everything.
How old is she?
She's 96, actually.
my grandma died when she was like 98.
Oh, very
She
close.
died older than him.
Wow.
There used to
That's
be-
That's a good long life there.
I don't know if he's still alive, but it was a Black Army veteran, and it was like 110 years old.
Yeah, he's still around. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he's on the news not that long ago.
And it was like something talking about
I
like
didn't know he was
if
still
the
alive.
queen died, who would next take the
I
throne?
was-
It was like it actually wouldn't be Prince Philip because he's not related to her. He would have to, all of her relatives would have to die before Prince Philip would become king.
Interesting.
Literally, a felon in prison, since she's related to the queen, would have a better chance of becoming queen.
Oh, Andrew? Did you go to prison? Oh, man. Hey, so last thing for us, how did he overcome all of this? He's gonna be a great
I don't think that was
Practice.
it.
He kept doing it.
Like walking over
Oh.
hills, talking to the, trying to speak over the ocean.
He
Yeah.
practiced.
He improved himself, yes, through practice. So he improved himself. So that's a good story for everybody because we all have things that we can work on, but determination. Yeah, he kind of might have went overboard, but that's what they say. If you want to be really great at something, you have to devote yourself to it. Look at professional
If
athletes.
you
Well,
really
it
want something,
depends
you've
on
got
what
to
you
be
No,
better
you're
than
just
everyone else.
genetically better.
It depends on what his goal was, if you consider it
Like
overboard.
Usain Bolt is because he has like good genes.
To become one of the best.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
too.
it wasn't
That's
overboard.
true too.
Even Michael Phelps.
That's true too. Yeah, because
I
some
know,
people.
He became one of the
Yeah.
best, so really you can't consider it overboard since you.
That's true. That's
You
true.
did.
You have
It's
to
an
use
obsession that
steroids
paid
to
off.
this level.
Yeah.
Who?
So be as fast as Usain Bolt.
Nobody will ever be as fast as Usain Bolt.
It's because he's just genetically lucky.
There's always
Yeah, so
someone-
through extreme training, and y'all know the examples. That's good.
You know, his
Now,
How fast can Usain Bolt run?
35 miles per hour.
His name is Bolt.
No, 27 miles an hour is. his
Yeah,
fastest.
yeah.
I don't think anybody's
Like
beating that.
Like a lightning
I thought it was 27.
Wait, can you search it up?
What?
How,
Well, yeah,
what
maybe
was the
100
fast?
years from now.
I can't speak today. How fast was Usain Bolt? Because I remember him being like 35.
I thought it was.
Now look this up.
I actually- I got a little something I can show you on that. Hey, folks, we're going to end the lecture now. That's our notes.
No, let's watch the
Have a happy Halloween.
Extra credit stuff, the extra credit stuff that we were watching
He
yesterday.
literally had
Well,
to take these, like,
here's the thing.